I'm going to talk about Nick's first few claims, specifically the differences between slavery and prison labor. Of course, the harsh conditions that slaves worked under are no longer in effect with the inmates today. It's unethical. It makes sense. We know that. And that's where the government slightly progressed with treatment. However, when you're stripped of your identity with a prison number, you are property of the prison facility. My opponent also mentioned that prisoners are allowed basic conditions such as food, clothing, shelter, medical care, and recreation and safety. Of course, the state has to provide that for them. If they don't give the inmates, they die. It's murder. And you can't tell us that slaves weren't provided with food, huts, and clothing. And going back to your medical care thing, even women were under medical care. Women didn't have rights back then either. So, however, that's not what the affirmative is talking about today. We're not talking about who had it worse, we are saying that because of the 13th Amendment, inmates are being exploited by the 13th Amendment because the 13th Amendment allows for involuntary servitude and slavery. It literally says it in the amendment. So because this amendment states that inmates are exploited for free labor, and because this amendment allows for slavery, it allows the government to still be deeply rooted with their racism by incarcerating higher numbers of people of color and not paying them. Thus, in our solvency claim, we are advocating for the 13th Amendment to be changed, allowing these inmates to be paid a fair minimum wage. Another thing that Nick mentioned is that the prisoners are volunteering their time to work the jobs, making them the opposite of slaves. According to an inmate statement on thinkprogress.org, he states that prison labor was voluntary, but prison food was difficult to swallow, and he wanted to supplement his diet with commissary items such as peanut butter, noodles, dried fruit, and kipper snapper, which is some kind of fish thing. He says that it was more a volunteer thing than it was forced labor, but it was tantamount to the same thing. The system systematically forces you to work without forcing you to work. Poor quality of food drives you to take on a prison job that pays you an average of 32 cents an hour if you work an average, of 5 to 6 hours per day. In state and federal facilities nationwide, prisoners are used as cheap labor to work in call centers, clean, toil in fields, shovel snow, fight fires, and mass-produce clothes, technology, and machinery. Correction officials allow some of the biggest corporations. Connection officials allow some of the biggest corporations in the world, such as Target, Walmart, and AT&T, to operate inside their walls in exchange for big kickbacks. Prisons that participate get a share of the profits, while the prisoners are paid far below the minimum wage of any state. Mere cents for their full-time work. The Crime Control Act of 1990 established that all federal prisoners who are physically capable of work must have a job while serving their sentences. According to the same inmate I mentioned earlier, people who choose not to work are locked away in solitary confinement, deprived of dignity and human contact. And another thing I want to mention, Nick talked about the racial demographic comparison, and he didn't realize that there are more white people that live in America. So of course the higher percentage is going to be 30%, but there is, it is 16% of black people that live in America, and it's 23% that are in our prison populations. So it doesn't make sense. The comparison that he made doesn't make sense. Of course, there's going to be a high number of white people, because there is a high number of white people that live in the U.S., if that makes sense.